couldn't resist buying this share size Lifesavers gummies, 5 flavors: green apple, cherry, orange, strawberry, watermelon.
Cherry?
Well, cherry's always been there. Watermelon and green apple. You know, my favorite Lifesaver was the clear one. Well, they're not really clear, but
Pineapple?
yeah. We don't even have that in here. I thought that was going to be part of this, else I wouldn't have bought it. Now I want a refund. I should go in and throw them on the counter, spill them out. It's like, you see any clear ones here?
It's not going to have the same impact because they're like gummy, right? If you wanted to return them and you spilled them on the counter, then it would make this like sound.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but you can take the gummy ones and wrap them around your tongue. There's a cock ring for my tongue.
Gross. Ew. It's like cutting off the circulation to the tip of your tongue.
You can put them around skin tags. Keep it there for a couple days and they'll dry up and fall off.
Everybody knows the best way to castrate a goat. Wrap a Lifesavers gum around his testicles. 2 weeks later, got a castrated goat.
Yeah, I'd wrap the fucking green apple.
No, cherry. Cherry's gotta go.
Look, whether or not you like cherry, it's a classic standard flavor. Lime has been thrown to the wind.
I love lime lollipops.
It's been thrown to the wind for green apple.
When I was a kid, I used to, like if I got a lollipop from the bank or something with my mom, I really liked to dip it in water and then continue to eat it.
Like a raccoon.
Like that one raccoon video.
All raccoons dip their food in
No,
water.
they don't.
Yes, it's a known thing. Raccoons dip their food in water. Look it up.
No, it's not the only way they eat.
Maybe it's not the only way they eat, but they like to do
That's
it.
what you said.
I said they all do it at some point. And that's why when you give them cotton candy and they dip it and it disappears, they lose their minds.
Where'd it go? You know what song it's in my head?
What?
These are, I don't know the words, but real voodoo usher on the 45.
Oh, yeah. What is that song?
I don't know. Cigarettes in the movie scenes, behind the movie scenes.
You can't even look it up with the lyrics because you don't know them, right?
Real voodoo usher on the 45. That's I'm just making the sounds. Minarets.
Is that what is that stupid app?
Shazam?
Yeah. I couldn't remember that. Is that still around? People still use that?
Yeah, people still use it.
You should open it if you have it.
I don't have it.
Oh, I was going to say you should open it.
Because you know why?
And sing into it. Shut up, Siren.
Excuse me.
What was that?
I had to burp and it hurt.
Yeah, because you tried to hold it in. You should have just let it go.
No, it would have been so loud.
That's okay.
It would have been like a dude burp.
If you did the doob burp, oh my God, I would not want anything to do with you.
Well, you just said to let it out, and that's what it would have sounded like. It's like
you're supposed to be a pristine lady. You know, that's the joke. I wouldn't care if you burped.
Like that, you might care.
No. Why would I care?
Because it's so, like, intense.
It's so human. I am not a human. I am a perfect being that does not burp or poop.
I'm not a girl
Who poops?
who poops. All I need is time, a moment that is mine, while I'm in between.
You should record an album.
Yeah?
Yeah. Let's create a Kickstarter. Well, maybe just GoFundMe is the way to go now.
Okay.
Does anyone do Kickstarter anymore?
The same people who use Shazam.
I think we create this backstory about a character of yours.
Mm-hmm.
You had lupus, and you fought it,
Okay.
and you won, but lupus had kept you down for so long, and you always had this dream of becoming this, not even famous or rich. You do it for the love of music.
Yeah.
Your dream was just to share music with the world.
Yes.
And now that you're in a spot to do it, you need the means. What would your singer name be? It could be a one name.
Yeah, I was thinking that. It's funny that you said that. Very.
Very.
Yeah.
How would you spell it?
Veri.
What's the significance? People are, very. Where did that come from?
I'm very good.
Was very determined to beat lupus.
Yes. And it's a personal story about, me and my dad, who's dead. One of his dying wishes was for me to sing.
He said,
But I couldn't because I was with all the lupus.
he said, "Sweet child, when I'm in heaven, I'll send you an angel of music." That'll be part of your story.
And that angel was apparently lupus. I got lupus right after he died.
It's no worse than Phantom.
I gave you some lupus.
Made your
Your
skin
head dizzy.
inflame.
No, it made your head dizzy.
Or skin inflamed. Whatever.
But lupus isn't about your skin.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Look up lupus. Do you know what lupus is?
Yes, lupus is you get like dizzy.
Lupus affects many parts of the body. It can cause a lot of different symptoms.
Okay.
Inflammation usually happens when your immune system is fighting an infection or injury.
Oh.
Makes your immune system attack healthy tissue. Yeah, inflammation of the skin. It's all over the place. So
Oh, my bad.
I'm not saying you're wrong.
I thought I was saying you were wrong.
Yeah, you were saying that.
Mm-hmm.
I gave you some lupus, made your skin inflame.
And now, how you are itching. Welcome to One Topic, where we stick to one topic. My name is Autumn Fisher.
My name is Greg Russ, and I guess we're getting to this topic that has really been a subtopic, I think, of every show that we have ever done.
Yeah, it's a vein that's run through all the topics in some way or another.
It's the driving force of my life.
It's the dark matter in our podcast universe.
I don't know if it's dark matter for me. It's very present and visible. That being death. A very cheery topic for today's episode of One Topic.
Welcome to One Topic, where we go deep into death. Greg, what are you afraid of the most of dying?
I didn't even take notes for the show. A lot of the times, the prep for the show is you want to write notes and so you can get all your thoughts out, but I just feel as though this has dominated my existence for so much of my life that it's all in my head. I've played through it. It's like being in a band who plays the hit song every night for years and years. They don't need the notes. They don't need the lyrics written down in front of them.
It's second nature.
Yes, it is second nature to me.
It's an invisible limb on your body.
Every bad coping mechanism that I created in my life was to offset the anxiety I felt about the fact that I and other people that I care about would die one day. And it all started... So thinking about being a kid, I think at some point as a kid, you learn about death, but it means nothing to you.
Yeah,
You just know-
it's something that's difficult to conceptualize as a kid.
Yeah, so you just know that things die. And then at that point, you're playing with your toys and something. This little people dies.
Yeah.
The little people.
Or
Do they still exist, by the way?
Every parent in every Disney Pixar movie dies.
Yeah, it's just a cheap way to tug on the emotional heartstrings. But little people, do those toys still exist? You have kids.
I think, yeah, they do.
All right, we don't have to talk about it. I was just curious. I haven't seen them in a very long time.
They're not that hot.
Yeah, that's the lame toy.
Yeah, that's like your aunt got you something weird. All right, I'll play with it.
It was a shame. I had the Little People Airport, the Sesame Street Little People.
Oh, yeah, those are cool. The vintage ones are cool.
I really enjoyed those.
Yeah.
But kids now are too hip and modern and technologically...
I want Peppa Pig.
Okay, get out of here. The little people. Point is, when I was a kid, I know that I had the little people die. Sometimes they would fall off the Sesame Street brownstone roof.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a Bert and Ernie little people. And Bert would always die because I preferred Ernie.
Oh, sure. Bert was a real square.
So you're playing, this is dead. This died. Dead. And then one day, it means more. I don't know why it just clicks. You're like, wait, what? Dying? And that's actually going to happen? What happens after that? I got some standard answer about heaven. Even though we weren't religious, we went to church 0 times in my life. I went with people sometimes just because I was hanging out with a friend or I had a girlfriend who used to take me to church, and I would count the lights in the ceiling when we were sitting there. It was a big Methodist church. There were a lot of lights. And then I knew the number, and then I would count and make sure the number still matched every time because it bored the hell out of me. But you get that standard answer. You're going to go to heaven. I didn't believe it. Not for a second.
What do you think prompted you at whatever age you were when death all of a sudden meant something bigger to you than just, what it means when you're really little? What do you think brought that on?
That's a good
or do you remember the moment of when you asked your parents this?
That's a good question. I don't know if there was a specific thing that prompted it. It was just on the way to school, on the bus, we would pass this cemetery every day. And I used to think about the bodies under the ground and how they just stayed there and they never moved. And that didn't unsettle me until it did, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I wonder if it's just some weird connection in your brain. Your brain matured to some sort of level where these two things connected, and all of a sudden something else makes more sense.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. I still drive past that cemetery sometimes, even though my parents don't live in Kennesaw anymore. But if I'm down that way, sometimes I go visit people who are still around. I drive past it, and there's one headstone. I'm like, that body is still there. I know that over time maybe the body isn't actually there, but for this argument, it's still the same spot. It's always been since I was driving past it when I was a kid, and that in itself, it seems very lonely and cold. I know you're dead. I know that it doesn't matter or mean anything, but just that in itself induced
it's
anxiety.
Hard to conceptualize nothingness. So I understand you're imagining what you would feel like if you were there.
Yes, if I were alive.
Right, I'm saying as in your kid brain.
Yeah, because you can't differentiate, I guess.
The absence of everything.
We had one of those 80s style couches, meaning the back cushions were sewn on. You couldn't take them off, but they would flip up. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
And so I would lift that up and I would pull the cushions that you sat on out a little bit and create a little nook in there. Then I'd crawl into that nook and I'd reach up and I would flip down the cushions like it was a coffin lid. And then I would just lie there as still as possible and try to get it as dark as possible. And I thought, this is what it's like to be dead.
Okay.
This is what it is. And
you were trying to get a grasp on it.
Yeah, so that had happened, and then I think I started asking questions because I didn't really know what happened. And you get
they told you heaven.
Yeah, I think it was just a dismissive answer. It's coming to light. My mom was going to some therapy because my grandfather died last year, and he was 88, I think, but it was still somewhat unexpected, and it really hit her hard, and she's unable to process it, I think, properly or grieve. Like, she's angry at the hospital and looking for people to blame, and I think maybe that's a normal thing, but she was going to therapy, and it came to light that she had a fear of death, and then she just stopped going. Oh, I'm too busy with the grandchildren. I can't make it anymore. Like, it's an excuse. Sure, whatever. It's your life. You can do what you want to do. So
maybe her answer to you was based on something she's afraid to really help you cope with.
Yeah, because I don't know how you.
She couldn't cope with it herself.
What would you say? So, I mean,
I have talked to Ellie about death.
Is she at 5? I assume that she's grasping that it's real and it's going to happen.
Yeah, there was recently a bird flew into the window, and it was hard. It was like two birds chasing each other, and then it was bam, and then I looked over the railing and the bird was upside down on the ground downstairs, like behind a bush. So I went down with a towel, like I don't know what, just to look. And so when I looked for it, it had moved, so I was glad, but it was still there, sort of like on its side. And then when I went to sort of reach for it with the towel, it flew away. So it was fine. But anyway, I told Ellie this story, and she was like, "Did it die?" Like, no, I don't think so. I saw it fly away. She's like, "Oh, okay, it's not dead." No, it's not dead. The first time we talked to her, that I talked to her about death, was our neighbor downstairs. Their dog, they had to put it down. JT. And so JT wasn't around anymore, and Ellie would ask, like when she asked what happened, why is Miss Tanya upset? And I told her it's because, her dog JT died. And she didn't understand what that meant. She didn't understand that meant like we won't see JT anymore. And she said, what happens when you die? And I said, well, I did a lot of explaining. I said, some people think that, you go to heaven.
See, you said the same thing.
Wait. I said some people
You said some people.
Yeah, some
but it's
people
presented.
say you go to heaven. I also said that, some people think that, it's just nothing. It's just gone forever. Goodbye, nothing. Some people say that. I told her, I said, a different celestial plane. I said, what that means is just like a different way of being in a place that doesn't exist here. I said, it's really hard. Nobody knows. No one knows what happens when you die.
Which
That's what I told her.
Can be very scary in its own right. And you're laughing about this new plane.
Well, because I said celestial plane to a 4-year-old.
Why is that? Okay, maybe it's a hard concept for a 4-year-old to grasp, but why is it any crazier than saying you go to heaven? That a gaseous...
I don't think that idea is crazy. I think saying the words to her, celestial plane, like she'll understand what that means, is stupid. But
a cloud of gas leaves your body and drifts off to a different... That's a different plane of existence in its own right.
Definitely. I really do believe that.
That
when you die, I like the idea of returning back to the earth. I think that's the natural state of being dead, and that's what I want to do. And I think that is important for your spirit or your energy or whatever it is to complete its cycle. I don't know what that means spiritually. It's just my notion of how things work.
I mean, it's a nice thought to think that there are elements that make up the planet and the universe, and you're made of the same elements, and then they go back in. And people want to be fertilizer.
Dust to dust.
They like the idea of being fertilizer. I died, and then some tree will grow in my remains.
Yeah. I think saying turn me into fertilizer, I think that's just some way to offset their uncomfortable feelings of talking about a concept that's maybe a little hippy dippy, so they're like, I'm a man, turn me into fertilizer, cow shit,
Yeah, I also think it's a way to express that you don't care, even though you probably do. I'm not scared. Just grind me up. I mean, I guess there's a nice thought somewhere in there that you become the nutrients that a tree sucks up with its roots.
I think that's nice.
Yeah, that's helpful in a way, at least to continue life in different ways.
There's something called sky burial. Have I talked about it on this show?
Bring it up. Who cares?
Where it's a certain group of people in the hills of some other country where when you die, they take your body to the top of this mountain, or just like on top of this thing where birds come and take care of you that way, and they call it sky burial because the birds take you up in the sky and eat you. Does that make sense? They don't pick you up and eat you in the sky. What I mean is they're eating you and then they fly around. Sky burial.
I guess
that
makes sense. Neat. I don't quite follow.
They put you up on a rock. They put your dead body on a rock,
and then vultures just come and eat you or something.
Yeah.
But why does it have to? You could put your body anywhere and it would be eaten by many different things. Yeah, but
it wouldn't be called. It wouldn't necessarily be like your pieces of you in a stomach of a bird in the sky.
This is where I get cynical. That's a marketing thing.
Not a marketing. This is like a religious belief in some mountainous something Incan. I don't know.
But here's the thing. And it's probably not the Incans, right? But we'll just, for the sake of this, say that it is. You're not Incan. So anyone who's putting this out there, there's probably some package that you can buy, and we'll make sure that this is taken care of. Just give us the money. We'll provide the van, the shuttle that takes your family to the top, and for the low rate of $600,000, all expenses will be covered. Your family will get food and free booze at our resort before we take you up there. Well, what a way to go. And everyone will get a card and a thumb drive that's got 2 songs of your choice on it, set to a PowerPoint slideshow of moments of your life. All for the low cost of $600,000 Sky Burial.
Let the birds come and eat you.
Be sure to check out Retail Me Not for a 25% off coupon for your first.
I have a living social coupon for a Sky Burial.
For your first Sky Burial. I'm sorry.
How do you feel about death right now?
Right now, I'm fine with it, I guess. I mean, I have a birthday coming up, or by the time this is released, the birthday will be over. And that's always a moment to look at another year that has passed and think, Jesus, doesn't stop. This just continues. And there's absolutely nothing I can do about it. And that's a helpless feeling. And I think that's one of the things that induces more fear. But I mean, just going back to when I was a kid and I didn't buy going into heaven, that just leaves a lot of questions. Like, well, what happens? And I just always thought it was nothing.
I always had a lot of questions about heaven. Animals going into heaven. Like maybe they had separate heavens for the animals. And who decided, even though it was like, I was going to say Peter Gabriel. Saint Peter that it apparently like looks in some book. But I mean, it all just seemed like it didn't make sense.
This is one of the things that scared me the most. For some reason, my fear was attached to movies and the idea that they were going to continue to make movies after I was dead. Movies I would never even know existed and didn't understand what the plots, because I would be gone and other people would get to go enjoy those. And that really bothered me. And then this ties into what you were saying about heaven. Are there movies in heaven? Are they making them up there? Is it just Earth releases? What do you do? Do you eat? You don't need to eat anymore, right?
That's what you were thinking as a kid?
Yeah, a little bit older. But do you eat? This was more of me. I already didn't buy into the idea, and maybe I was mocking it a bit. But I think these are valid questions, even if you do believe it in heaven. Do you eat? No. Do you have sex? Sex was only for procreation, so therefore probably not.
No, you're not in it. No. Okay, if heaven really does exist,
it sounds boring. Forever.
No.
You have houses. Who gets the better house?
It's not like that.
What do you do?
It's not like that. You're not your physical being.
Do you
just
play
in
cards?
Heaven. No, it's not like that. You're in some other, like I said, you're in some other plane of existence where it's not really you. It's not you with your thoughts and your memories.
Well, everyone says I'll see you again one day.
Listen, this is why it doesn't exist. Because before you were born,
there was a bunch of nothingness, as far as you're concerned.
It was the complete absence of you. Zero you.
Yes.
And then when you're dead, it's the same thing.
That's what that is another reason that it was hard for me to accept, because that is exactly what I believed. I thought about all that time and how I just didn't know. I had no clue, which that was fine, right? I wasn't around, and that was okay. But the idea of returning to that as a conscious being that is currently alive is like, wow, I just won't be around. And look, it's very self-centered, because that's what we are. I can only be me, and I'm only in this brain. This brain is me. Wherever consciousness lives, it is me. And so the idea of me not being here means nothing else exists, really, as far as I'm concerned.
I don't know why I've never had worries about dying. I've worried and been afraid for, other people to die, if someone gets sick, or, thinking about my parents dying, or, I don't know, my kids or something. I mean, like I've been afraid for death, but not been worried about it in the way that you're talking about.
Again, it consumed me. You try to find ways to offset the anxiety that it induces, and that's why things like OCD pop up, which I had a small bout of it, and it didn't take over for whatever reason. But 7th grade, there were things like before I go to sleep, I need to flip the pillow 5 times. Or I had a TV in my room. It just had an antenna attached, so there were 6 channels, let's say. I had to flip through the channels, forward only. I couldn't go backwards through the channels. Forward only 3 times.
Yeah.
If I didn't
Anxiety.
But it's tied to this idea that something bad is going to happen to someone you love if you don't do.
Well, that's like, that's OCD.
That is then that came out of this fear and the idea of getting close to someone. Here's the thing with death. Even to this day, I have not really experienced anyone close to me, grandparents, and that's sad. But the fear of people dying, the thought of it and what it would be like is where all of this is based, because I never actually even experienced anyone close to me dying when I was younger. And maybe if I had, it wouldn't have been as bad because I was just left to fill in these blanks and these ideas of what it would be like and how losing someone you cared about would be the saddest thing in the world. And I'm not saying it isn't, and then it isn't difficult to deal with, but getting close to someone intimate, what happens if they just go away? Man, that seems like such an awful, awful idea. And I'm not talking about like abandonment. I'm talking death, which I guess in its own right can feel like abandonment, and some people process it that way. But the thought was unbearable. I wouldn't be able to handle that. So, you create these systems, keep people at bay to an extent. I think at one point I bought into this idea that if I just live, it may be where, this idea of modesty comes from. I also think there's some value in it, maybe virtue, and living modestly and not above means or, excessively for the sake of it. But, if I live a life where I don't have much, and I won't be so sad later on if I'm going to die to lose things.
Yeah.
Well, what does it matter?
Don't you think that's how you felt, but not how you feel now?
This was a shitty life, so I'm glad that it's over. No, I think honestly that, yes, to answer your question, I think honestly that kind of living actually only fuels the fear of dying because you're a person who wants things and has needs and dreams and you'd like to enjoy your life. And that actually ended up scaring me more because I knew the end of the line was just a bunch of regret before you actually died. And you just think back and it would be sad and filled with regret. And at this point in my life, the idea, it's more comforting to say, wow, I had this really great life and, there were people that I loved and I had meaningful relationships. And yeah, it's kind of sad that it's going to go, but I'm glad that happened. Like, it's more comfort in it. It doesn't feel like you're as alone.
Yeah.
Because I guess you're not as alone, but it makes it seem less scary.
Yeah, I feel I think because I'm not so much of an anxious person, not to say I don't have anxieties, but I don't think I'm that anxious. And so I've never had a lot of fear of like worrying and thinking about my death or thinking about death in general. I have had people die in my life, friends of mine who were younger than me. I almost died when I almost drowned. Me and my mom almost drowned together, like for real, almost died. And yeah, even then at the time, obviously, scared and traumatized, PTSD, stuff like that. But just thinking about that and knowing how close I felt and how good it felt to like think about giving up, because you're drowning and you're swimming and you're fighting and the feeling of like giving up and probably just like letting myself drown, it was so hard to not do because it felt so good. It was weird. It felt like when you're laying on your couch in the afternoon and you're watching something and you are sleepy and you turn around to the other side, like you turn over to the and you're facing the back of the couch because you know you're gonna nap and you don't even care that you're not seeing the TV anymore. It was that. I was like, oh yeah, here it comes.
I wonder why that is. I mean, obviously, it's built into our brains to survive and live, and a lot of these responses are there to get you out of danger. But maybe at some point, your brain realizes this is futile.
Yeah, like release a bunch of dopamine, just relax.
Yeah, it's like, all right, we're past the point. This is going to happen. So just flood your brain with the endorphins.
Yeah, and I feel like I understood when people say like you have to fight, like people in the hospital who are dying or something, and they talk about like, yeah, they're fighting. You know, it really is like that. Like you really have to fight to stay alive. That's a real thing.
I do think that sometimes if you're diagnosed with, say, cancer and it's not already too far in, like stage 4, that some people probably don't want to fight as much.
Yeah.
And I think that may have an effect on their survival.
On how? Oh, yeah, on their survival. Sure. I mean, doctors talk about that all the time before patients go into surgery. Just their demeanor, and if they're like a bubbly personality, a lot of times they heal more quickly after surgery. Their recovery time is quicker. They don't have as many complications as people who are just not like that before surgery or have other weird issues going on. It really does affect how you heal.
You go in, this isn't going to go well. I'm just going to die. And then, I mean, look, the brain's a powerful thing.
Yeah. It's like people with, what's it called when you always think you're sick?
Hypochondriac.
Yeah, hypochondria. Yeah. They get something serious. It's like they manifest it, which I don't believe in, but it seems like that's true.
Well, placebo effects are a real thing.
That's true.
It does exist, and you can convince your, like, well, now, I don't think placebo effect, who knows what the reality of situations is. I was going to say I don't think a placebo effect actually can cure diseases, but certainly if you're taking a medication, you're told that this pill does something, and it's actually a placebo, but what you're told the pill does actually still happens. Yeah,
I just watched this thing about anxiety on Netflix. I think it was like Explained or whatever. And they curing or things that were effective against anxiety medication. I'm sorry. Shoot. Exercise and placebo were at the same level. So yeah, the placebo did the same amount of good as exercise did.
Anxiety is a mindset quite a bit too. It's part of it. I don't want to be dismissive of it because it certainly can be consuming, and there are reasons behind it, mechanisms of action in the brain that I couldn't even ever begin to understand or explain. But, you know, that's why breathing exercises can calm anxiety, at least in the short term, because you're getting your brain into a different state.
Yeah, so in this thing that I watched, it talked about how anxiety is good for survival because it reminds you that at some point, you know, you were chased by this lion by that bush, and now you have anxiety about going near those bushes, which is good because maybe next time the lion can't get you because it's not sneaking up on you in that bush. But what it does is it releases like all of these things through your body to help you escape from something, you know, like dilates your pupils and makes you pulls blood away from certain systems and puts it in other places. And but people with anxiety disorder, that happens more often and for things that are not dangerous.
And all this is tied to avoiding death. There's an idea through evolution that there's times when people were more active and on the move, and you were encountering more dangers that maybe you needed to interact with physically. So at that point, bigger, stronger people were the people that survived, and those genes got passed on. Then you get to a point where you're not moving around as much, and the anxious people survived because you're not out there interacting as much and being more passive and just avoiding danger, ensured survival. And so those genes got passed on, and that's why, they're...
That sounds like a predator or prey, or meat eater versus plant eater.
Yeah, it's tied into that.
Maybe if you have anxiety, you should be a vegetarian. Just biologically.
And maybe that'd be an interesting study to take a look at if someone put that. Are anxious, or most vegetarians more anxious or aggressive? I would probably say anxious, right?
Yeah, see? Because you're the prey.
But so it served a purpose.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It helped people survive. It kept you from death.
Yeah.
But we live in a world... Actually, I do think about it quite often, how many opportunities there are for me to die every single day. A trip on the subway platform when the train's coming in, or just...
Yeah, but those are just accidents.
I know they're accidents, but I was like, this doesn't scare me. There's no
you're
fear.
you're not being stalked, like an animal and a lion or something. You know what I mean? That's not happening.
But there are people who exist, what I'm saying, in this kind of world where they are scared of everything is a danger out there.
Yeah, they can't see what's a real threat and what's not.
Crossing the street's a dangerous thing, and you should pay attention to it. But people go to extremes with things like that, and I guess
if I never cross the street, I'll never die. I'll never cross the street.
But I don't carry around worry in that, and that's really, I guess the people every day are dying in this city in New York. Certain things are killing them. Accidents, person riding a bike, people get hit by cars. I don't walk around thinking about that, though I'm quite aware of just how it could happen, and like, wow, that's done.
Yeah, so you're not worried about actively dying. You're just worried about how much time you have until you die.
It's just the idea of not having answers. I was left to fill in blanks, and I didn't experience it. You were saying that you had people in your life who died, and maybe that has made you better suited to the reality of it.
Maybe. My dad's mom died when I was like 5, and then my mom's mom died in this crazy way where she got lost in the woods and she died.
It's awful.
I know. In 1996, it was right during the Olympics. It was crazy. And then friend died. Oh, yeah. Me and my mom drowned. Friend died.
See, you've been surrounded by it.
Yeah,
Again,
I guess so. My birds, my fish, they all died.
Again, it's not been present in my life, even to this day, for someone my age. The amount of death is 3 grandparents.
Yeah.
My sister had a friend who was in an abusive relationship, and then she left the guy, and he shot her and then killed himself. This is a horrific event. This is, I was already grown and out, and I'd met her a few times, but what do you do with something like that? And my sister seems very well adjusted don't get me, it wasn't she was very upset, but it all seemed natural, like the grieving process and something that horrific, and to get through it and, to mourn and be sad. And I looked at that. I was like, I don't even know if I could have done that. I don't know if I could have gotten through that. I feel like it would have broken me. And I don't know if that's true. This is, again, just this idea that I have of what it would be like. And I hope I don't have to experience it. I'm going to at some point, but I'm not wishing for it as a learning opportunity.
Yeah.
But this is where this lives. It's just the unknown, and people don't like the unknown. And I still have these moments where I feel like people, it's so strange to me that we're not constantly walking around in a state of panic about dying, knowing that our demise is on the horizon, and there's something in our brains that's able to block that. But quite often I can cross that, and this panic really sets in. And I have to get up from whatever I'm doing, and as I've stated before, my new trick is no. You just say no, and then it goes away. But the other night I didn't sleep at all, and it wasn't...
Which I doubted at first, and I asked you, what was it really like? not sleeping. Because, this is my point is that some people say, like, I didn't sleep at all last night. Okay, what time did you go to bed? I went to bed at 9 and, I didn't sleep. I got up out of the bed at 6:30 in the morning. You're like, no, you slept.
I slept enough that it got me like 30 minutes is what I slept. It was probably 33 minutes. I got to this. Sometimes when you sleep, it heightens your awareness of things. I know. Does that make sense to you? Like, meaning if you wake up. So not while you're asleep, but if you wake up, these things are very, very clear. And this is where usually this, understanding that I'm going to die one day comes into play. It's like that block that's in your head is kind of...
Yeah, everything. I feel like things just relax.
Yeah, the defenses are down. And, with the birthday coming up, and it's not that I feel like I'm old. I'm not panicking about my current age. It's just this idea when I was a kid, instead of dealing with the fear the way I probably should have, I just punted it. It's like, well, that's still a long ways away. Oh, that's a long ways away. Oh, that's a long ways away. And we're at the point where it's not as far away now. It's getting closer. If everything goes well, there's still more time I'm alive than I've already been alive, but we're getting close to the point where that's going to tip. And there'll be less time for me to be alive than I've already been alive. And then I think about being old and what it's like every single day to think this could be my last day. Is this it? Is this going to be it? I was like, how do you live like that?
Yeah, but you don't. You don't, just like you don't now. You don't walk around like, is this the last day? You don't do that.
Because at this point, it could be the last day. But you have this idea that things will go well.
Like longer, farther.
Yes, and then when you get to the point where you're in your 80s, it could happen at any time.
Well, that's something my dad is struggling with. So he turned 70. I guess he's 71 now. Shoot, I don't remember how old he is. But his whole thing was, if someone dies in their 60s, you're more likely to say like, oh yeah, it's a little young. Like, oh, it's a shame. And then if they die in their 70s, somebody says, well, they lived a good life. 70s, it's not so bad.
Yeah, not so bad. I think there's still, there could have been more time, and that's a little early. But also, people aren't saying, wow, oh my.
Yeah, it's what a shame. So much life to live. And he has, what's that?
Well, yeah. How does he deal with it? What's his mechanism of coping when it comes to this?
There is none.
But he's bringing it up.
Yeah. He acts like it doesn't bother him, but it sure does. Because I told him, I was like, every time we were together, he would talk about how he's old and like, you'll be taking care of mom, like when I'm not here, you'll be taking care. I'm like, you're not sick. You're healthy. There's nothing wrong with you except you're older. Like you've got to stop talking about it like that. And he pretends like it's fine or that he's not worried, but he is. And years ago he had told me, he's an atheist and he always just like felt like there was just nothing after you die, and that fact is getting harder and harder to deal with as he ages. He stopped bringing that up. Now he just talks about like, well, when I'm gone, you and mom. But
the idea of nothingness offers no comfort. It offers nothing.
And it doesn't bother me. I'm not trying to say I'm above it. I'm not above anything. It just doesn't compute as like a problem.
I'm
not worried about it. I'm not worried about like time and how long time has gone. Like you talk about how there are references and like time stamps in your life that you remember and you feel like that wasn't that long ago, but it was actually like 20 years ago or something.
Yeah, everything. That's how I quantify time.
Right.
That's something that helps me, again, offset these feelings that I get.
Right.
I quantify time. I count steps. For that reason, I have, there's an app you can get on your phone that's for the sake of quitting things. It's called Quit That, the one I have. And I put smoking in there And I'm looking at it now. It's been 3,636,634 minutes since I quit smoking 2,525 days ago. And so I put my birthday in, and I know what time of day I was born, and I've been alive 19,983,026 minutes. That's only 455
Congrats.
months, 13,877 days, 1982 weeks. That's the year we were born. But this kind of stuff, I look at this, and I like seeing the numbers.
Yeah.
But it also, but the way I look at it, just right now, it's like, all right, 13,877 days. Okay, so let's double that, and then what age am I at, and where's that going to take me, and what point have I lived more days than I have left to live? And I played online dominoes, not necessarily because I enjoyed dominoes. I was enjoying it, but it got to the point I played so many games that I just like seeing the number grow. 18,000 something games I ended up playing before I stopped, and I think about all the time that I spent doing that. And then it made me feel bad. How much time have I wasted playing this? And then, you think if I do something mindless, it's going to make me not worry about dying as much. But the truth is, I just look back on it and think about all the time has passed and the things that I haven't done with it. And that's where this fear comes from, that then ties into death, because I've got limited time and I'm not doing anything with that time, and I want to do things with that time. And I think that's where the shift has come. It's like, no, do good things with your time. And then
now you feel like there's not enough time to enjoy the time.
Well, that's part of it's like, all right, now you've had this shift in your life, and it took you until you were 35 to kind of implement this, or at least get in the spot where you can implement this shift in outlook and the things that you want to do to get fulfillment. And it's like, wow, but now there's only so much time left. And then you feel like, pressure to get some of these things done. But, in talking about all of this, living forever makes zero sense. And I that doesn't sound like a fun thing to do either.
Who wants to do that, really?
And I know people bring up, well, you have to work for those. That aside, just get rid of that stuff. It's just living forever. Then you lose meaning. Like, meaning goes away.
Yeah. I heard it an analogy to, hey, do you want to play this board game? It lasts forever. Literally, you will never stop playing this game. Like, then no, I don't. I don't want to just do this one thing forever.
Yeah, because the point of playing a game, several, right? But
that it ends. There's ups, there's downs.
Yes. There's a range of feelings.
You win, you lose.
Someone wins. It's fun. So I am well aware of that, and I buy into that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, of course. If you're going to love someone, it means more. It's like, look, we've got limited time, and let's take advantage of this and try to do the best job that we can while we're here.
I think that I'm just flying lower to the ground than you sometimes.
Yeah, I live in my head.
Yeah.
I mean,
I have trouble with what years things happened. I don't know. I barely know the range of years of my jobs or relationships, or when I graduated from college, like the year I started college, the year I ended college, like I'm just not sure about a lot of that. And so I really am not, I feel like I am living in moments more often than I'm not. And I think thinking about your own death, or thinking about like how much time is being taken up by these moments, I think, like I said, you're kind of like flying above yourself a little bit more often than just like looking through your own eyes.
Yeah, I had to step out of my own head. It was one of the big things, and it's a hard thing to do. You live there, but you get out, and then I think it's much easier to find a revelation about your existence when you're not living in there.
Yeah.
Because you're not looking for it. And then you realize it's like just a series of coincidences anyway, life, and maybe you're missing out on things because you're just not in the spot for them to happen to you, because you're so preoccupied and concerned with other things.
Yeah. You're doing something that's keeping you away from it, thinking you're protecting yourself, but really you're stopping yourself from experiencing those things.
Yeah, and it doesn't make your feelings about dying, my feelings any different.
Yeah, like a rock feels no pain, an island never cries.
It probably just adds to them at that
Sure.
point. I think one of the things, though, that maybe I have a harder time grasping is the idea of just getting older and your body betraying you.
Yes.
And that's, I talk about being old and thinking about maybe today's the last day. Maybe today's the last day. I don't know how much it's death itself. And maybe it's more that just being at that point in your life. And if your brain is still working, you don't have dementia, and it's still high functioning, just to be in the same body and be the same person and not being able to do the thing. Like, what is going on here? That's got to be a very hard thing to grasp.
Well, the long term of that, right, is you are just elderly, right? That's its own little prison. But then also the people who are dying and continue to live day after day, not for weeks and weeks, but just like, let's just say for 5 days they continue to live. They're dying, but they're still there. They're looking around. Their body is slowly giving up. Like, that is difficult. That is difficult to think about. Like, so that happened with my Uncle Bill recently, that scenario. And then also my Aunt Eileen, she died in this really great way. Actually, she wasn't doing well in the hospital. She didn't have like a super long illness or anything like cancer or anything, but lots of weird little things happened. She decided she wanted to go home and die instead of being in the hospital and slowly die. So they took her home, they gave her stuff so she wouldn't feel pain. But it took for a while for her to pass. And she said, my Uncle Phil, her husband, said that she would wake up in the mornings or wake up at times and say, like, why hasn't Jesus taken me? She just like expected. She was like, all right, I'm ready. I'm going to fall asleep now and hopefully I'll die. And then she'd wake up. Like, that's its own weird place to be, where you have accepted it. You're ready. It's beautiful. You're in your own home, surrounded by people you love. It was really nice. What I mean by when I said that she had she had a cool death, was that because she went home and decided to do it and to like let herself die, everybody got to come and see her. And even though it was so hard to do, it still was like these beautiful moments of having like a one-on-one conversation with her and telling her that, you loved her and like you were, like what she means to you and stuff like that. It was this really cool moment instead of someone just being like cooped up in a hospital and there's.
Well, you're taking some control back, what little bit you have. If it's a choice,
what she did.
If it's a bit of a choice, I could see how that can be comforting.
Yeah, it was really neat.
The discussions, having discussions with people in your life before you die, if you know you're going to die. When I've thought about if I had terminal illness and I knew, I think the initial reaction would be to isolate and hide and just shut people out. It's like I don't want to deal with this, but that seems very sad. And I think ultimately what I would end up doing is coming around and wanting to talk to people, and me expressing to them how much they meant to me, and the people who are close to me, telling them that I don't want to leave them, but it's a sad thing, and I think that it would be uncomfortable to have those discussions, but also like to sit there and say something like that and like cry with the person. Why not? That's a real feeling. And for the person who lives, maybe that makes them feel better that you had that discussion. They can remember that.
It does. And it makes them not leave you. Like my Aunt Eileen has never left me, ever.
Because you connected and, real.
In life and in her death, Yeah,
I feel like if I isolated and shut out the people in my life, that would hurt them so much more. Talk about 100%. Feeling abandoned. It's like, it's not the dying that is the abandonment. It's like that person, I loved that person and they just didn't even, express anything to me before they went.
Yeah.
And if I were the person who was living and I had someone, that would hurt a lot. I mean,
can I say that's kind of what happened to my dad? My dad's dad died when he was young. And the way that, I guess my granddad, I think he died when my dad was like 12. Um, the way he decided to help my dad through it was to sort of abandon them so that like he wouldn't grow any closer to his own father so that he wouldn't miss him when he died.
Yeah, it's flawed logic.
Yeah. And so yeah, thinking about that story that I've heard from my dad and then putting what you just said about like feeling so abandoned by the person. Like not giving you the chance to understand or be able to say things to them or.
And how old was your dad?
He was young. He was like 12, something young.
Yeah.
13?
You don't know what to do with that. You don't know how to make sense of that.
It's your dad. Who knows what the relationship was like before that? I have no clue.
And I can even understand the reasoning. I want to shield and protect the person from this.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it is also maybe selfish. I don't want to deal with this either. I don't want to have to deal with seeing my young son.
Yeah.
That I'm going to be leaving soon, so I'm just not going to face it.
You're right. So he was protecting himself. He maybe under the guise of protecting my dad.
Yeah, if you really, not to say that he didn't love him, but if you actually act in a way that is loving, you get into situations that are difficult but meaningful.
Yeah, for your own kid.
Yeah, and for yourself. I feel like just because something would be really hard and sad, there's got to be some kind of comfort in it.
It is. Anything that's hard like that, getting through it, you always feel better afterward. You know, it was really hard to sit there with my Aunt Eileen and tell her that, you know, what she meant to me, knowing that this was going to be the last time we really have a conversation. But it was, you know, so meaningful to me and I will never forget it.
Which is a very nice thing to have.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother who's still alive, she has dementia. She's not really, I don't know how much she is aware of her existence or remembers these days, but it kind of came on fast. And, you know, it would be nice to have a conversation with her because it really at this point is like she's not there.
Yeah.
But when I went to see her for the first time, when this set in, when her dementia got to the point where maybe she wouldn't remember me, I was like a timid child. I went to the house and like peeked around the corner and was nervous to go see her. And, it was, the point is, playing off what you were saying, there is something comforting about seeing her before she's gone, but it's also, I was longing for the ability to have a real conversation.
Yeah, well, because she's a stranger, right?
Yeah,
at this point.
And then you think about how much is she aware of, and are there points where it comes back and is she scared? But
I bet.
But you can't even talk about it. She can't even talk about it. It's so that, that's really being alone.
Yeah. So, how do you avoid those things?
What things?
I don't know, getting dementia.
You can't. I mean, that's just the hand you're dealt.
Yeah.
And a lot of worry, I think, does live in that, what happens. And maybe it's not death itself that it's scaring me, because if it were, I would be scared every day. Or the idea of getting sick. I mean, I don't know how to react, and it seems like it would be very frightening if it's like you have 2 months and that's it. But it doesn't strike me as much as just thinking about dying natural causes at old age. That is where, for whatever reason, a lot of this fear lives.
No, that makes sense, because if someone's giving you a timeline, right, it wouldn't be exactly those dates or anything, but at least it would give you a goal to reach. If it's just this open-ended thing, that's what's sort of scary. But again, I mean, the end of your life, if you have something like that, either one, whether you have like 2 months to live or you're just not sure when it's going to happen, You've already lived this whole life understanding what it's like in moments and what moments you'll remember, what moments made you feel something, and what moments were kind of, you feel like maybe were wasted, and you learn from those moments. But you have to be connected to your own life and look at it and think about what happened and where you are today, so that you can, as you get closer to the end, which we all are doing, that you get better at it as you go forward.
Again, I had this idea that if I lived a really shitty life and I got old and I looked back on it, I'd be like, good, I'm glad that this is happening. Glad I'm at the end. Mm-hmm. But no, it really just does seem like the saddest thing. It's like all this, what did I do with my life? I didn't get the things out of it that I wanted. I
think about that. I think about, like, I don't want to be on my quote unquote deathbed thinking like, why did I do that? Why didn't I do that?
Exactly. And this is what I've come to terms with, is this idea you live a life that's rich and full of meaning and depth. And while it may be sadder in theory to leave it behind because you're going to die, I think that the real sadness and that regret doesn't exist. And maybe it, in a weird way, makes it better.
It's like in Death Becomes Her. Do you know Death Becomes Her?
Yes.
You know, at the end when, you know, Bruce Willis finally decides to leave them and he stops drinking and then they go to his funeral and he had this whole second beautiful life because he realized what it was like to ruin it with. Yeah.
Yes.
That's what it is.
That is the moral of the story of this episode. That's right.
The moral of this episode is be like Bruce Willis's second half of his life in Death Becomes Her.
Yeah, I think you just try to do the best that you can. If you can say, I tried, and if it didn't all work out the way I wanted it to, and I didn't get everything I wanted, but I really did try, that it's got to be a bit more comforting.
Yeah.
And that's the new approach. It doesn't keep me from not waking up panicking, but...
Or not going to sleep.
Yeah, at all. But I would like, I want people in my life that when that happens, I can say, hey, this is happening. Instead of just having, isolated and having no one around.
Yeah, you have to live.
And trying.
All right, thanks for listening. Nobody die so that you can subscribe to our show.
Yes.
Like and subscribe, rate and review us. Find us everywhere online at One Topic, and tell a friend, I guess.
You always get right to the end.
I can't.
And then you can't. You just
do it.
Thanks, everybody. That's all.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, thanks for listening to this fun episode of One Topic.
Thanks, like and subscribe.
Tell a friend. Thank you.
Okay, bye. Hey, Greg.
Hey, Autumn.
Do you like hot sauce?
I do like hot sauce, but I'm getting pretty bored of my regular Texas Pete or Tabasco. I'm looking for a local sauce without any additives or extracts. A company that uses local peppers so it's as fresh as possible, and a company that really cares about the integrity of the sauce and where their ingredients come from.
Definitely.
And hey, while we're at it, I don't want a sauce with too many ingredients. A lot of other sauces out there, they have all kinds of fillers. So I'd love to find a sauce with, I don't know, let's say no more than 5 ingredients. Maybe even, and I mean, it's crazy, but there's gotta be a company out there that hand processes their sauce. Bottling and labeling every bottle themselves. I'm probably asking a lot.
Well, you really are, but there is a hot sauce out there who only uses 5 ingredients, 0 fillers, additives, or extracts, and who bottles, labels, and packages everything themselves. It's called Hop Sauce.
What?
They're a small batch hot sauce company out of Chattanooga, Tennessee that's won Best Louisiana-style sauce in the country. How many times? Not once, not twice, 3 times.
3 times!
How does that sound, Greg?
I think that sounds amazing.
You know how you can get your own bottle of hot sauce?
No, tell me please now.
Hoffandpepper.com. And not only am I giving you the gift of the best hot sauce that you'll ever taste, I'm going to give you 15% off if you use the code ONETOPIC15.
Hold on, that's...
Yes, get a pen and paper.
1 topic 15.
Good. That's ONETOPIC 15, all squished together at checkout. You'll get 15% off your order, and your life will be better.
Thank you.
You're welcome.